They thought they won the Super Bowl. You remember that night? The night they were dancing in the streets like history had just bent itself in their favor, chanting that they got their country back and America was great again. They thought this was the moment black people would shrink, go quiet, and prepare to suffer. But look at them now, right now, this exact moment. They are angry, they are broke, they are fighting each other like trapped animals inside a burning house. Their farms are collapsing, their jobs are gone, their bills are choking them, and 42 million people just lost their food stamps, most of them white. Meanwhile, black people are at grandma's house, grilling, taking trips, building businesses, resting, laughing, unbothered while their world falls apart. And here is the part nobody expected. The peace you feel is not an accident. It is not numbness. It is not apathy. It is prophetic positioning. God has moved you out of the line of fire while he deals with the people who built systems designed to break you. There was a sister online who said something that hit deep. She said, the only reason MAGA is panicking is because black people stopped screaming. And that is real. When you are the only one falling apart while everyone else is chilling, that is when panic begins. They expected to watch us suffer, but now they are suffering and we are watching like it is a movie we did not even buy tickets for. But here is the truth, family. This is not politics. This is not karma. This is not irony. This is prophecy. The Bible has been warning the world for thousands of years what happens when people dig pits for the innocent, roll stones toward the oppressed, and lift weapons against the people God calls his own. If you have been feeling calm while the world shakes, that is the hand of God placing you somewhere safe. Proverbs 26:27 says, whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and whoever rolls a stone will have it roll back on them. That is not poetry. That is a spiritual law, and that law is unfolding in front of your eyes. They dug pits with policies meant for you, but they fell into those pits. They rolled stones towards you, but those stones crushed them. And black people, your peace in this moment is the sign. You are not hiding, you are being hidden. You are not overlooked, you are being protected. This is the beginning of the great reversal, the moment God flips the script and exposes every trap they built while lifting you into rest. And trust me, this is only the beginning. Look around for a moment and really let this sink in, because right now in this country, two completely different worlds are existing side by side. On one side you have MAGA America collapsing under the weight of its own promises, drowning in the consequences of choices they celebrated like a parade. On the other side you have Black America, not perfect, not without struggle, but strangely calm, strangely steady, strangely unshaken, while everyone else is spiraling. And if you are black listening to this right now, I need you to hear me clearly. The reason you feel so detached from their panic is because your spirit already knows something your mind is just now catching up to. You were built for storms. You were born inside storms. You survived storms they could never endure. And now that a storm has finally hit them, they are crumbling under a pressure you have known since birth. Do you feel that? That quiet strength in your chest? That sense of peace that makes no sense at all? That is the evidence that God positioned you before the shaking even started. Because while white rural America is losing farms, losing savings, losing jobs, losing marriages, losing control of their own communities, black people are still doing what we always do. We are gathering at grandma's house, kids running through the living room, uncles arguing about football, aunties fixing plates, music playing low in the background. We are cooking big family meals even when groceries are expensive, because we know how to make something stretch. We are babysitting each other's kids, passing down clothes, sharing rides, helping each other with rent, doing hair in the kitchen, praying together, laughing together. We are hustling, building, creating, surviving. And not just surviving, but surviving without panic, surviving with grace, surviving with rhythm, surviving the way people who have already walked through fire know how to survive. Meanwhile, MAGA communities are breaking. Their grocery stores are half empty. Their local banks are collapsing. Their schools are failing. Their police departments are underfunded. Their cost of living is rising faster than their paychecks. Their children are caught in addiction, depression, hopelessness. They are yelling at the government they once worshipped. They are turning on each other because they do not have the emotional muscles to handle what life looks like without privilege propping them up. Everything they thought black people would experience under Trump is now happening to them. Every single thing. And here is what makes the whole situation even more wild. Black people are not gloating. We are not out here cheering for their downfall. We are just living in a kind of peace that almost feels supernatural, living with a calm that feels like it came from somewhere higher, somewhere bigger. And let me ask you something directly, because I need to know if you feel this too. Have you noticed that while everyone else seems terrified about what the future holds, you feel unusually grounded, unusually steady, unusually protected? Have you noticed that while the news is full of panic, something inside you keeps saying, stay still, stay calm, stay in your lane, things will work out? If you feel that, say yes in your mind right now, because that is not coincidence. That is confirmation. That is your spirit, recognizing that what is happening in this country has nothing to do with you being unlucky or blessed by chance. This is spiritual. This is generational. This is prophetic. This is the fruit of resilience shaped through 400 years of survival. This is the strength of ancestors who endured chains, whips, segregation, humiliation, exploitation, and still kept families alive, still kept joy alive, still kept God alive in our mouths and in our music. While they lived in a bubble of comfort that collapsed the second life stopped catering to them, we lived in a reality that taught us how to adjust, how to stretch, how to rebuild, how to keep moving, even when nothing made sense. They never had to do that before. We always did. They never had to fight to exist. We always did. They never had to learn how to create joy in struggle. We always did. And now the roles are reversed, not because we rose up and took anything, but because God shifted the ground beneath our feet. And here is the part that shocks them the most. We are not falling apart with them. We are not melting down emotionally. We are not screaming at the sky. We are not losing our minds. We are steady. We are covered. We are protected. We are watching the chaos without being swallowed by it. And that is exactly how prophecy looks when it manifests in real life. It does not appear as thunder or lightning in the sky. It appears as a strange peace that does not match the environment. It appears as a protection that others notice before you do. It appears as a separation that nobody can explain. They look around and say, how are we suffering while they seem fine? How are our communities falling while theirs are holding on? How are they calm when everything is falling apart? And the answer is simple. Because black people learned how to live without the illusion of safety. Because black people learned how to survive without guaranteed stability. Because black people carry a spiritual inheritance that is older than America itself. Because black people have already endured what they are only beginning to taste. The shaking that is breaking them is the same shaking that wakes us up. And if you pay attention, you will notice something deeper. God is not just protecting black people physically. He is protecting your peace. He is protecting your spirit. He is protecting your focus. He is pulling you out of the noise, out of the chaos, out of the fear. He is placing you in a position where you can watch without absorbing their panic. He is placing you where you can listen without being pulled into their drama. He is placing you where you can stay calm no matter how loud the world gets. And that is why I need to ask you this one question out loud, not for me, but for you. If you are hearing this message and you have felt that strange peace in your own life, comment or say the word yes. Let me know you are here. Let me know you feel it. Let me know you are awake enough to recognize the shift happening around you. Because once you recognize it, everything that comes next will make sense. Now let's break this down with real clarity, because the chaos hitting MAGA right now didn't just come out of nowhere. It didn't drop out of the sky. It didn't surprise God. Every single piece of destruction they are choking on today is connected directly to the same policies they cheered for, the same laws they pushed, the same systems they swore would crush black people and keep us at the bottom. They stood in stadiums and church rallies clapping for decisions they thought would destroy us. But the joke, the twist, the plot reversal they never saw coming is that all those policies were built like pits, and pits do not care who dug them. Whoever falls in, and right now they are falling in by the millions. When Trump announced he was cutting DEI, they celebrated like it was the beginning of a new world where black opportunity would be wiped out. What they never understood is that the majority of federal jobs, government contracts, and administrative roles are held by white people. So the very hammer they forged for us swung back and smashed them. The layoffs weren't hitting black workers the way they imagined. They were hitting white MAGA communities, white families who depended on those salaries, white people who voted for the man who took their paychecks away. They thought they were trapping us. They trapped themselves. And then came the snap cuts. 42 million people losing food assistance during the shutdown. They were so sure that food stamps meant black people. They used that stereotype until it became their whole worldview. But when the cuts came down, it wasn't black America standing in line at the church pantry in rural towns. It wasn't black mothers in the Midwest crying because the benefits were gone. It wasn't black seniors choosing between groceries and medicine. It was them, white families, white seniors, white single mothers, white veterans, white children. Entire counties in red states panicking because the one safety net they never expected to need was suddenly snatched away. And what made this even worse for them is that even after the government reopened, they had to reapply for benefits under new rules created by their own leader, rules that kicked them out of the system entirely. They blamed immigrants. They blamed black people. They blamed Democrats. They blamed the universe. But deep down they know the truth. They cheered, they celebrated, they dug that pit with their own hands. Then came the farming disaster. They wanted Trump to be tough on China, but they never understood how global economics works. They didn't know China was the buyer, keeping many of their farms alive. So when Trump threw tariffs like confetti, China simply shrugged and moved their business to Brazil. $12 billion gone. Vanished overnight. Entire farming communities collapsing. Generational farms lost. Families who lived off the land for a century suddenly looking at bankruptcy paperwork. They begged for help. They begged for bailouts. They begged for relief. But the same government they worshipped was too disorganized, too corrupt, too self-serving to save them. And again, while all this was happening, black people were not the ones losing farms. Black people were not the ones drowning in lost contracts. Black people were not the ones spiraling into despair. We were still doing what we always do, finding a way to survive, to build, to keep moving even in hard times. But the biggest pit MAGA dug, the deepest one, the one they were convinced would crush black communities forever, was mass deportation. They thought removing millions of undocumented workers would solve their problems. They thought immigrants were the reason their lives weren't what they dreamed. They cheered when buses rolled out. They cheered when raids happened. They cheered when families were torn apart. They thought black people would replace the farm workers they were driving out. They thought we would crawl back into the labor roles they designed for us long ago, but we did not. We said no, absolutely not. We are not picking your crops. We are not saving the system you built to exclude us. We are not stepping into the gap created by your own hateful decisions. And without immigrant labor, their farms rotted. Fields dried, produce spoiled, meat packing plants shut down, entire supply chains collapsed, prices went up, jobs disappeared. And again, it wasn't black communities collapsing, it was theirs. While they watched their towns fall apart, black communities were starting new businesses, learning new skills, growing in ways nobody could explain. And here is the deeper truth they do not want to face. The reason black people are not panicking right now is because we have always lived in survival mode. We know how to stretch a dollar. We know how to survive without government help because we were never given any. We know how to navigate systems designed to crush us. We know how to adapt, pivot, rebuild, create, hustle, shift. White MAGA America's never had to do that. Their entire world is built on the assumption that things will work out for them. And now, for the first time, they are facing what black people faced for 400 years. Not because we wished it on them, not because we did anything to them, but because they built systems with the intent to bury us, and now those systems are collapsing under their own weight. And if you zoom out and look at everything happening with clear eyes, you will see that this is not random. This is not accidental. This is not political misfortune. This is spiritual law in motion. Everything they designed to hurt black people is hurting them. Everything they built to limit black people is limiting them. Everything they weaponized against black people is firing back at them. The pit is swallowing its architects. The trap is snapping on the hunter. The storm they sent toward us is circling back and flooding their own homes. And black people, whether you realize it or not, you are standing in a place of divine exemption, a place of supernatural protection, a place where the weapons formed against you are turning themselves around before they even get close. You did not create this reversal. God did. And now you are watching it unfold in real time. Before we go any further, you need to understand that what you are watching unfold is not just politics, not just economics, not just social collapse. What you are watching is the oldest spiritual law in the book revealing itself in real time. Proverbs 26:27 says, "Whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and whoever rolls a stone, that stone will roll back and crush them." That is not symbolic language. That is not a cute saying for children's church. That is a blueprint for how God responds when people build systems meant to trap the innocent, the poor, and especially the people he has placed his mark on. And MAGA ignored that law. They ignored it so loudly and so confidently that they actually believed they were above consequences. They thought they could legislate your downfall and celebrate your suffering without that energy circling back to them. They thought they could push policies designed to bury black people and walk away untouched. But pits do not care who dug them. Stones do not care who rolled them. Traps do not ask who set them. The moment you build a weapon with someone else's name on it, that weapon becomes spiritually unstable, and sooner or later it swings toward the hands that created it. And that is exactly what you are seeing now. They built the pit of DEI elimination thinking you would lose opportunities. Instead, white federal employees are losing their jobs by the tens of thousands. They built the pit of snap cuts thinking black families would starve. Instead, white rural America is the one lining up at food banks, desperate for help. They built the pit of tariffs thinking it would punish China and crush global competition. Instead, their own farms collapsed, their own prices skyrocketed, their own businesses failed. They rolled the stone of mass deportation, thinking black people could be cornered, blamed, targeted, and pushed back down the ladder. Instead, the stone rolled back and crushed their entire agricultural system, their supply chains, their grocery prices, their small towns, their labor market. Every pit they built is swallowing them. Every stone they rolled is rolling back. Every trap they set is snapping shut on them. And black people, you know why this hits so deeply? Because for the first time in your life, you are not the one standing at the bottom of the pit. You are not the one being crushed by the stone. You are not the one being trapped. You are standing on the outside watching justice return to its sender. And that is a feeling many of us have never experienced. You know how rare it is for black people in America to witness a weapon built against us fail before it ever touches us? You know how rare it is for us to be bypassed by destruction instead of pressured by it? That is why this moment feels so strange. That is why your spirit feels alert but calm. That is why you can see chaos without feeling chaos. God has placed you in a different lane entirely, a lane he carved out for you long before MAGA even existed. Because you are not the target in this season, you are the witness. And here's where it gets even deeper. The pit in Proverbs 26 is not just physical harm. It represents systems built on deceit, manipulation, domination, racism, exploitation, and injustice. The pit is the courtroom that sentences black teenagers to decades for minor crimes. The pit is redlining that kept black families out of wealth. The pit is the prison pipeline that turned our communities into profit centers. The pit is the education gap, the medical gap, the wealth gap, the housing gap, the system that tried to trap us generation after generation. But here's the divine twist. The same systems that once crushed black people are now malfunctioning and turning inward on the people who created them. Courtrooms that once targeted us are now overloaded with their own crimes. Drug epidemics that once destroyed our neighborhoods are now consuming theirs faster than they can respond. Economic policies they designed to drain our communities are now draining theirs so deeply they cannot recover. They thought they were building a cage for black people. They were building a cage for themselves. They thought they were building a noose for black people. They were building a noose for themselves. They thought they were building a system that would keep us underfoot forever. But in reality, they were building a trap door beneath their own feet. Proverbs 26:27 is the law of reversal and repayment. Once the pit is dug, the fall is inevitable. And black people, you are living in the era where the fall has finally begun. You are living in the era where God is saying enough. You are living in the era where the stone is turning direction. You are living in the era where the pit is no longer yours to carry. MAGA supporters do not understand why nothing is working anymore. They do not understand why everything they cheered for is destroying them instead of empowering them. They do not understand why every weapon they forged is malfunctioning in their own hands. But you understand because you know what the word says. You know what justice looks like in Scripture. You know what happens when oppressors dig pits for God's people. You know what happens when hatred becomes a political platform. You know what happens when policies are designed with cruelty at their core. And here is what is even more important. You know what happens when God lifts his hand off a nation that refuses to repent. Black people, your peace is your proof. Your calm is your confirmation. Your safety is your sign. You are not inside the pit this time. You are watching from a distance while God handles the ones who tried to bury you. This is not accidental. This is not random. This is the law of the pit, the law of the stone, the law of the reversal. And now that you understand it, the rest of the story is about to make even more sense. Now we need to talk about a spiritual law that makes every oppressor nervous, even though they pretend it does not exist. Galatians 6:7 says, "Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that he will also reap." That means whatever seed you plant, that fruit is guaranteed to return to you. It is not maybe, it is not sometimes, it is not hopefully, it is guaranteed. If you plant corn, you get corn. If you plant wheat, you get wheat. And if you plant oppression, cruelty, violence, racism, exploitation, and hate, you will harvest those things in your own house, your own community, your own children. And family, black people in America know better than anybody what this country has sown for the last 400 years. They sowed chains, they sowed the auction block, they sowed whips cracking across the backs of men, women, and children. They sowed babies ripped from mothers. They sowed families torn apart. They sowed laws that declared you 3/5 of a human being. They sowed blood in cotton fields. They sowed bodies in rivers. They sowed lynching trees. They sowed white-only signs. They sowed segregated schools, segregated buses, segregated hospitals. They sowed firebombed churches and assassinated leaders. They sowed sundown towns where black people could be killed for existing. They sowed redlining that blocked our families from owning property. They sowed banks that refused us loans. They sowed a justice system designed to cage us. They sowed a drug war that targeted our neighborhoods while ignoring theirs. They sowed mass incarceration that stole fathers from homes and sons from futures. They sowed humiliation. They sowed fear. They sowed generational trauma. They planted every seed of oppression imaginable and expected those seeds to never grow in their own soil. But that is not how spiritual law works. Seeds do not vanish because the planter forgets them. Seeds do not expire because history moves forward. Seeds stay in the ground until the season of harvest arrives. And what season are we in right now? Harvest. Not our harvest, but theirs. Economic collapse in their communities, addiction epidemics in their children, mental health crises exploding among them, family structures breaking, towns dying, schools failing, violence rising, systems collapsing. Everything they said black people deserved is now growing in their own backyard. Everything they tried to avoid is now sitting at their table. Everything they mocked us for is now knocking on their door. And black people are watching it happen without lifting a hand. Not because we are cruel, not because we celebrate suffering, but because the word said this would happen. And the word cannot lie. Galatians 6:7 is not a warning. It is a sentence. It is the universe's return policy. It is God saying, you cannot plant pain and expect peace. You cannot plant stolen labor and expect prosperity. You cannot plant hatred and expect harmony. You cannot plant inequality and expect stability. And because they planted these things for centuries, the harvest is not small. It is generational. It is widespread. It is overwhelming. And here is the part they will never say out loud, not on television, not in church, not in politics. They know this is their harvest. They can feel it. They can feel the weight of every seed their ancestors dropped into the soil. They can feel the consequences of systems they proudly upheld. They can feel the spiritual recoil from centuries of injustice. They are reaping exactly what was sown, and it terrifies them because deep down they expected God to ignore it. They expected karma to skip them. They expected justice to forget them. They expected the pain they caused to stay locked inside black bodies forever. But God is not mocked. God does not forget. God does not misplace injustice like a lost file. And now that the harvest has arrived, they want mercy they never gave, compassion they never offered, understanding they never showed. But the harvest does not stop because the planter regrets the seed. And black people, here is the part you must understand. You are not harvesting with them. You are not reaping their fruit. You are not carrying their consequences. Your ancestors paid their price already. Your ancestors walked through fire already. Your ancestors bore the weight of injustice already. So while they face the harvest of their ancestors' actions, you are entering a different season entirely. That is why black resilience feels supernatural right now. That is why you can withstand pressure that breaks others. That is why you can thrive during instability. That is why your spirit feels strong even when your circumstances are not perfect. You survived the planting season, they are surviving the harvest season. Those are not the same. And the craziest part is they still think this moment is political. They think it is about Democrats versus Republicans. They think it is about Trump versus the establishment. They think it is about the economy, inflation, immigration, global trade. They have no idea they are living inside a spiritual cycle older than America itself. They have no idea they are walking through a prophecy they helped write with their own actions. They have no idea that the ground beneath them is producing fruit from seeds they never expected to see again. But you know, your spirit knows, your history knows, your bloodline knows. And if you have ever wondered why your peace feels so strangely heavy, so strangely rooted, so strangely calm in the middle of all this chaos, it is because deep inside, your soul recognizes this season. You have been waiting for this moment across generations. Not revenge, not dominance, but release, relief, rest. The lifting of a burden you were never meant to carry forever. They are reaping, you are resting, they are harvesting, you are healing, they are unraveling, you are awakening. And the story is only halfway told. Now let's step into one of the most powerful reversals in all of Scripture. Because once you see it clearly, you will understand exactly why the moment we are living in feels so familiar. In the book of Esther, there was a man named Haman whose entire mission in life was to destroy Mordecai and the Jewish people. He was wealthy, he was powerful, he had the king's ear, he had influence, he had status. He had every advantage the system could offer. And what did he use all that power for? To build a structure designed to kill the people he hated. Not a random structure, not a small threat. A gallows 75 feet high, tall enough for the whole city to see. A public execution platform designed to terrorize an entire people. He built it with confidence, he built it with arrogance, he built it believing he could shape the future however he wanted. He built it the same way America built its systems of oppression. And Haman did not build those gallows in secret. He bragged about them. He was proud of them. He wanted people to know exactly what he was planning. Just like America bragged about its prisons, its war on drugs, its tough on crime laws, its crack era sentencing, its redlining, its vote suppression, its 3 strikes laws, its stop and frisk policies, its school to prison pipelines. They did not hide their gallows. They campaigned on them, they televised them, they ran on them politically. They built them with the same arrogance Haman had, believing black people would be dangling from those structures forever. But the Bible says something that should shake every oppressor to their core. The king discovered the truth. The lies were exposed. The plot was revealed. And when judgment came, Haman was hanged on the very gallows he built. Not another set of gallows, not symbolic gallows. The exact same structure, the exact same platform, the exact same rope he prepared for someone else became the instrument of his own downfall. And family, if that does not sound like America's story, then you are not listening. This country built the gallows of mass incarceration to destroy black communities, but now those prisons are filling with white rural addicts caught in the opioid crisis. The same judges, the same jails, the same laws meant for black bodies are now swallowing their own children. They built the gallows of economic exclusion, denying black families loans, homes, generational wealth. But now their own towns are dying from economic collapse, while black entrepreneurs rise with creativity they cannot understand. They built the gallows of misinformation, propaganda, and hate-filled rhetoric, believing it would unite white America against us. But now that same hate has fractured their own political base, turning MAGA against Republicans, Republicans against each other, families against families. They built gallows and walked straight into them. They built traps and fell face first into them. They built systems that were supposed to cage black people forever, but now those cages are snapping shut on their own lives. And the part that gets them the most is that black people are not even fighting them. We are not storming buildings. We are not burning down towns. We are not out here rioting. We are not organizing revolutions. We are not lifting a finger toward their destruction. We are simply watching as the structures they built tilt, crack, and collapse, with them still standing on top of them. Just like Mordecai, he did not push Haman. He did not sabotage him. He did not lift a sword. He simply stood in his truth, honored God, refused to bow, and watched his enemy self-destruct. That is exactly what black people are doing now, refusing to bow to lies, refusing to bow to intimidation, refusing to bow to propaganda, refusing to bow to systems that were never built for us. And because we are not bowing, because we are standing, because we are still here, the gallows they built are turning toward them. Look at the opioid epidemic. Look at the suicide rate in rural white communities. Look at the economic collapse in red states. Look at the political infighting tearing their movement apart. Look at schools closing, hospitals shutting down, birth rates falling, hopelessness rising, mental health breaking. These are gallows. These are ropes. These are platforms of destruction. And none of them were built for us. They were built for someone else. Yet they are now hanging the builders. And here is the part that takes the breath out of your lungs when you finally see it clearly. In every story of divine reversal, God allows the oppressor to build their own destruction. He does not stop them. He does not interrupt them. He lets them gather the wood, hammer the nails, tie the ropes, spread the propaganda, set the laws, strengthen the system. He lets them believe they are winning. He lets them celebrate. He lets them boast. He lets them think they have total control. Because the higher the gallows they build, the harder the fall when judgment comes. And right now America is standing on top of a structure it built with its own hands over centuries. And the rope is tightening. The beams are cracking. The platform is shifting. Their systems are turning against them. Not because black people rose up, not because black people attacked, but because the spiritual law of reversal has arrived. And black people, listen very closely, because this is the part that matters for you in this moment. You are Mordecai in this story. You are the one God positioned to stand still while the system flips on its maker. You are the one God has protected while judgment hits the ones who wronged you. You are the one God lifted while the oppressor fell into the hole they dug. You do not need to lift a finger. You do not need to fight. You do not need to panic. The gallows are not for you. They never were. Their collapse is not your punishment. It is your confirmation. It is the sign that God has finally turned the page. The same page your ancestors prayed for. The same page your spirit has been waiting for. And the story is still unfolding. There is a scripture so powerful, so blunt, so brutally honest about what happens to oppressors that once you understand it, everything happening in America right now becomes crystal clear. Psalm 37 says, "The wicked plot against the righteous and grind their teeth in anger, but the Lord laughs because he sees their day coming." Think about that for a second. God does not panic. God does not worry. God does not scramble to fix anything. God laughs. He laughs because he already knows the ending. He sees the trap they set. He sees the sword they sharpen. He sees the bow they pull back. And he knows every weapon they formed will eventually turn around and pierce their own hearts. That is not poetic language. That is not metaphor. That is a spiritual principle in motion, unfolding in front of your face. Look at MAGA right now. They are angry. They are bitter. They are lashing out at everyone around them. They are blaming immigrants, blaming the government, blaming each other, blaming black people, blaming fate, blaming the universe, because the world they thought they controlled is falling apart in their hands. And the more they fight, the more they scream, the more they push, the more their own movement fractures and eats itself alive. That is exactly what Psalm 37 describes, the wicked turning their own swords inward, their own aggression slicing back toward their own communities. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. MAGA's economic sword is piercing them as inflation, farm collapse, job loss, and grocery prices crush their own households. Their political sword is piercing them as Republicans split into warring factions that cannot agree on anything, not even on their own leader. Their cultural sword is piercing them as their children reject everything they stand for and walk away from traditions that no longer make sense in a collapsing world. Their social sword is piercing them as isolation, depression, addiction, and hopelessness spread through their communities faster than any government program can fix. And while all this chaos is happening, black people are not the ones panicking. We are not the ones spiraling. We are not the ones waking up every morning with anxiety sitting in our chests like a brick. We are resting. We are working. We are building. We are minding our business. We are watching the storm circle around us without touching us. That is Psalm 91 in real time. 1,000 falling at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. And if you are honest with yourself, you have felt this. You have watched the news, seen the disasters, the infighting, the economic breakdown, and something in your spirit whispered, stay calm, stay still, stay out of the way. That voice was not fear. That voice was protection. That voice was God saying, do not step into a battle that is not yours. Let them fight themselves. Let them destroy themselves. Let them collapse under the weight of what they built. And you know what makes this moment so wild? MAGA truly thought all this backlash, all this judgment, all this chaos would fall on black people. They thought Trump's election meant we were about to suffer, starve, struggle, lose jobs, lose benefits, lose homes, lose peace. They thought God was on their side. They thought the system was on their side. They thought history was on their side. They thought oppression was about to work one more time. But instead, everything flipped. Black people are strangely peaceful. Black people are strangely stable. Black people are strangely focused. Black people are strangely grounded. That is not luck. That is divine separation. That is God pulling you out of the line of fire before the judgment hit. And if you look closely, you can see how precise this separation is. Their communities are breaking. Ours are bending but not breaking. Their families are collapsing. Ours are healing. Their children are losing direction. Ours are awakening. Their economy is falling apart. Ours is being rebuilt from the ground up through entrepreneurship, innovation, and collaboration. Their system is shaking. Our vision is sharpening. And the irony is so deep it almost feels unreal. We spent centuries being told we were unstable, weak, dysfunctional, cursed, chaotic, doomed to fail. But now, as everything shifts, it is clear that the instability was never in us. It was in them. The fragility was never in us. It was in them. The chaos was never in us. It was in them. And now that privilege has evaporated. They are experiencing the world the way we did for 400 years, except we developed resilience and they never had to. They thought their world was unshakable. We always knew the world was shaky. They thought comfort was guaranteed. We always knew comfort had to be fought for. They thought stability was their birthright. We always knew instability was something you learned to navigate. They thought they were strong. We actually became strong. That is why the shaking is destroying them and awakening us. And here is the powerful part. Psalm 37 does not tell the righteous to fight. It does not tell the righteous to scream. It does not tell the righteous to panic or retaliate. It says, trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and feed on his faithfulness. In other words, live, build, rest, stay grounded. Stay anchored, stay focused. God is handling the part you cannot see. He is turning their weapons on themselves. He is breaking their bows in their own hands. He is shattering their alliances. He is exposing their lies. He is unraveling their plans. And he is doing it without requiring you to lift a finger. Black people, that is why your peace is so important in this moment. You cannot afford to let them pull you into their chaos. You cannot afford to let their fear become your fear. You cannot afford to let their downfall distract you from your assignment. Your assignment is to witness, not worry. Your assignment is to build, not battle. Your assignment is to stay in position while God handles what he promised to handle generations ago. So when you look at the news and see them turning on each other, remember Psalm 37. When you see their policies collapsing, remember Psalm 37. When you see their leaders fighting their own followers, remember Psalm 37. When you see chaos sweeping through their communities and bypassing yours, remember Psalm 37. God laughs because he knows exactly how this ends. And if God is laughing, you do not need to fear anything. There is a prophecy most people skip over because it forces them to confront a truth they are terrified to admit. a truth America has avoided for centuries, a truth that explains exactly why their world is shaking and ours is rising. Jeremiah 30 says that in the time of great trouble, God will make a full end of the nations that oppressed his people, but he will not make a full end of his people. He will correct them, yes, but he will save them. That means judgment and protection can exist at the same time. Collapse and elevation can exist in the same era. One nation can fall while another people rise. And if you look at America right now with open eyes, you will see that this is exactly what is happening. MAGA thought they were entering a season of dominance, but what they actually stepped into was the time of Jacob's trouble, the final stage of a long, painful prophecy. And here is the twist. Black people in America have already lived through Jacob's trouble. We lived through the Middle Passage. We lived through slavery. We lived through Reconstruction. We lived through Jim Crow. We lived through lynching epidemics. We lived through racial terrorism. We lived through redlining. We lived through mass incarceration. We lived through medical abuse. We lived through voter suppression. We lived through police brutality. We lived through every form of oppression this nation could invent, and somehow we are still here. Not just here, but alive. Not just alive, but awakening. Not just awakening, but remembering something ancient, something powerful, something this nation hoped we would never recall. And now, while black people are rising into clarity, purpose, identity, and spiritual understanding, the very nation that oppressed us is being brought low. Economic destruction, political chaos, social collapse, internal civil war, systems imploding, privileges evaporating, foundations cracking, power structures falling apart. Everything Jeremiah warned about is unfolding step by step, and the people who once believed they controlled the world are realizing they cannot control anything, not even themselves. And yet, in the middle of all this shaking, black people are being pulled out of the blast zone, not by politics, not by protests, not by strategies, by divine positioning, by God moving us out of the way so he can deal with what has been rising against us for centuries. Look at the pattern. We are calmer than we should be. We are more focused than we should be. We are more creative than we should be. We are more spiritually alert than we should be. We are more unified than we used to be. And deep down, every black person paying attention can feel that something is shifting, something is lifting, something is being revealed. It is the ending of an old era and the beginning of a new one. And what makes this moment so intense is that the two eras are overlapping. Their era is collapsing while our era is awakening. Their identity is crumbling while ours is being restored. Their confidence is dissolving while ours is solidifying. Their institutions are shaking while our vision is strengthening. And Jeremiah said it plainly, God will make a full end of the nations that oppressed his people, not a partial end, not a symbolic end, a full end. That means systems they trusted will fail them. Leaders they worshipped will betray them. Economies they depended on will collapse beneath them. Ideologies they swore by will crumble in their hands. Movements they built will turn on them like wild animals. And while all this is happening, God says, I will not make a full end of you. Meaning while they are losing stability, you will gain clarity. While they are losing hope, you will gain direction. While they are losing power, you will gain identity. While they are falling apart, you will be held together. And whether they accept it or not, they are witnessing something they never expected to see. Black people rising into a sense of self they spent centuries trying to erase. Look around. Black people are learning history schools refuse to teach. Black people are reclaiming names, languages, traditions, and spiritual practices they once mocked. Black people are building businesses at the fastest rate in the nation. Black people are beginning to see ourselves not as victims of America, but as survivors of prophecy. Black people are realizing that our existence is not an accident, our endurance is not luck, our resilience is not random. Something ancient has always been protecting us, shaping us, strengthening us through oppression that should have destroyed us. And now the oppressor is facing what they once forced us to endure. Their time of trouble is starting just as ours is ending. Their suffering is rising just as ours is calming. Their world is falling apart just as ours is beginning to make sense. They cannot explain why everything they built is collapsing. They cannot explain why their communities are struggling. They cannot explain why they are losing control. They cannot explain why black people are not suffering the way they assumed we would. They cannot explain the shift because they cannot accept the truth. This was written, this was foretold, this was inevitable. And here is the part black people need to understand deeply. You are not just surviving this moment, you are being prepared for what comes after. Because every time God ends an oppressive empire, he prepares the oppressed to rise into a new identity on the other side of judgment. When Egypt fell, the Israelites walked out free, wealthy, and protected. When Babylon fell, the exiles were restored to their land with renewed purpose and vision. When every oppressive system in the Bible collapsed, God always lifted the people who suffered under it. Always. That means God is not just ending their era. God is positioning you for the next one. And the reason your spirit feels awake, the reason your peace feels unexplainable, the reason you feel separated from their panic is because God has placed you in a different chapter than the one they are living in. They are living in collapse. You are living in awakening. They are living the end. You are living the beginning. That is why this season feels heavy but holy. That is why you feel calm but alert. That is why you feel distant but connected. You are experiencing the first breath of a new era, the rise of a people who were never meant to die, never meant to disappear, never meant to be erased. Now let's step fully into what this moment really means. Because everything you have seen so far, every collapse, every reversal, every crack in the system, every wave of panic hitting MAGA communities is not random, not coincidence, not political fallout. It is the visible beginning of a spiritual shift that has been building for generations. This is not the warm-up. This is not the pre-show. This is the moment the ancestors whispered about, the moment prophets dreamed about, the moment history kept circling back to but never reached until now. What you are witnessing is the convergence of judgment and awakening at the exact same time. The kind of moment the Bible calls an appointed time, a moment when God steps directly into history and rearranges what humans thought they controlled. And black people, whether you feel it yet or not, you are not just watching this moment, you are being positioned by it, shaped by it, lifted by it. The reversal is not coming. It is already here. Look at the signs. MAGA communities are spiraling into economic collapse while black businesses are rising at the fastest growth rate in the nation. Their schools are failing while black education programs and homeschooling networks explode with strength. Their political movements are fractured beyond repair while black unity is quietly strengthening under the surface. Their families are breaking under pressure they have never learned to endure while black families are healing generational wounds, reconnecting with their roots, rebuilding what was once stripped away. Their communities are losing hope while ours are gaining spiritual clarity. Their wealth is evaporating while black financial literacy, group economics, and community investing are reaching levels this nation has never seen. They are questioning everything they once believed, while black people are finally answering questions we were too afraid to ask. And the wildest part is that none of this is happening because we pushed them, fought them, confronted them, or rose up against them. It is happening because God is flipping the script. The reversal is not powered by politics. It is powered by prophecy. And that is why it feels unstoppable. That is why it feels inevitable. That is why it feels bigger than all of us. Because it is, this moment was written before any of us were born. Now here is the part black people need to fully grasp. For 400 years, America treated you like its floor. It built its wealth on your labor, built its culture on your creativity, built its identity on your suffering, built its comfort on your pain. But the floor is shifting, the foundation is cracking, the roles are reversing, and the same system that once stood on top of you is now collapsing under its own weight. That is what happens when a nation sows violence and injustice for centuries. The harvest always returns. But here is the beauty of this moment. While their world collapses, yours is being rebuilt. While their identity dissolves, yours is being restored. While their confidence breaks, yours is rising. While their spirit shakes, yours is strengthening. You are watching the true meaning of chosen unfold in real time. Chosen does not mean superior. Chosen does not mean privileged. Chosen means protected during judgment, lifted during collapse, awakened during shaking, preserved when everything else falls. That is what is happening right now. And whether black people realize it consciously or not, something in our spirit is responding to this shift. You can feel it in your quiet moments. You can feel it when you watch the news. You can feel it when you talk to family. You can feel it when you pray. You can feel it in your bones, like something ancient is rising, something we lost is returning, something stolen is being restored. And the reason this moment feels both peaceful and electrifying is because spiritually, black people have been surviving the storm for centuries, but now the storm is finally moving past us and toward the people who created it. That is why you feel lighter even in struggle. That is why you feel calmer even when life is not perfect. That is why you feel focused even without knowing exactly where you are heading. You are no longer under judgment, you are under alignment. You are being realigned with identity, with purpose, with destiny, with truth. And let me tell you something that may shock you. MAGA's collapse is not the climax of this story. It is the beginning, because once the system that oppressed you falls apart, you are no longer reacting to survival, you are stepping into creation. You are stepping into building, you are stepping into becoming. You are stepping into the future your ancestors never got to see. And that is why the old world must fall. Not just because of judgment, but because it cannot hold who you are becoming. Look at the youth. Black children today are not intimidated by anything. They speak with authority. They challenge everything. They ask questions our grandparents were punished for asking. They carry a confidence America cannot crush. That is not random. That is ancestral inheritance waking up. Look at black artists, black thinkers, black entrepreneurs, black inventors, black educators. We are stepping into a level of brilliance that is not borrowed, not filtered, not diluted. It is pure, it is raw, it is ours. And while all of this is rising, MAGA is tearing itself apart from the inside. That is not accidental. That is the sword piercing their own hearts. That is the pit swallowing its builder. That is the gallows turning back on its maker. That is the prophecy completing itself. And here is what you must understand. You cannot save them from their own harvest. You cannot stop judgment. You cannot rescue a system God is dismantling. Your responsibility is not to jump into their chaos or feel guilty for their suffering. Your responsibility is to stay aligned, stay awakened, stay focused, stay open, stay watching, stay building. Because what is coming next will require clarity. When the old world fully collapses, black people will need vision, leadership, unity, and identity to build the world that comes after it. This moment is not the end. This moment is the preparation. And you feel it, don't you? You feel something shifting. You feel something rising. You feel something calling you. That is because the great reversal is already here, and you were born to witness it, survive it, and rise through it. Now we have reached the part of the story that generations before you prayed you would one day see, the moment when everything you have survived stops being a burden and becomes evidence, proof, confirmation that you were never abandoned, never forgotten, never overlooked. You were being prepared. Every hardship your ancestors endured was shaping a people who could stand in the middle of judgment without being consumed by it. Every injustice you survived was sharpening your instincts. Every loss was awakening your spirit. Every disappointment was building your resilience. Every tear was watering the seeds of identity that are now rising inside you. And now here you are, living in the hour when the old world is collapsing and a new world is calling you forward. Not because you fought for it, not because you forced it, but because prophecy always arrives on time, and destiny does not ask for permission. Look around you. The systems that once felt untouchable are disintegrating in real time. The institutions that once held unimaginable power are losing their influence. The voices that once controlled the narrative are losing their grip. The people who once shaped history are now reacting to it. And in the middle of all this shaking, black people are being lifted into a clarity we did not have before. A clarity of identity, a clarity of purpose, a clarity of spiritual truth. A clarity that whispers you were never meant to blend in with the world that oppressed you. You were meant to outlive it. You were meant to witness its fall. You were meant to rise when it crumbled. That is why your peace right now feels supernatural. That is why your calm feels strange even to you. That is why your intuition is louder than ever. Your spirit is telling you what your mind is only beginning to understand. This is not your destruction. This is your release. This is not your fear. This is your freedom. This is not your burden. This is your inheritance. And here is the truth you must hold on to. The fall of MAGA, the collapse of their systems, the panic consuming their communities is not your focus. It is simply the sign that your chapter has finally begun. Because after every judgment in the Bible comes a moment of instruction, a moment when God turns to his people and says, now that I have cleared the path, walk into what is yours. And black people, that is the moment you are stepping into right now. This is the moment when you stop seeing yourself as a survivor and start seeing yourself as a builder. This is the moment when you stop defining yourself by what America did to you and start defining yourself by what God is awakening inside you. This is the moment when you stop reliving the wounds of the past and start recognizing the opportunities of the future. Your ancestors survived the fire so you could live in the awakening. Your ancestors carried the weight so you could walk in the release. Your ancestors fought to exist so you could finally discover who you really are. And whether you realize it or not, the awakening has already started. You can see it in the rise of black business ownership. You can see it in the hunger for historical truth. You can see it in the rejection of false identities. You can see it in the spiritual shift happening across black communities. You can see it in the growing understanding that black people were not just victims of history, we were central to it. You can see it in the way black children speak with a confidence previous generations were denied. You can see it in the way black families are reconnecting with culture, language, tradition, purpose. You can see it in the way black people are withdrawing from systems that never served us and creating our own. You can see it in the way our spirit is saying, move differently, think differently, build differently, pray differently. You are not being called to run from the collapse. You are being called to rise above it. And to rise above it, you must release the idea that your future is tied to their survival. You must release the fear that their collapse will drag you with them. You must release the belief that your destiny is dependent on their systems. It never was. Those systems were built to limit you. They were never built to carry you. And now that they are falling, you are finally free to walk into who you were always meant to become. But with awakening comes responsibility. You cannot sleepwalk through this moment. You cannot ignore the shift inside you. You cannot let fear pull you back into old patterns. You cannot shrink when the world needs your voice. You cannot numb yourself when your spirit is calling you to rise. You must prepare. Prepare spiritually through prayer, focus, discipline. Prepare mentally by releasing narratives that were forced onto you. Prepare emotionally by healing wounds you once accepted as normal. Prepare practically by building wealth, knowledge, community, skill. Prepare relationally by connecting with people who see what you see and feel what you feel. Prepare collectively by supporting black businesses, black creators, black educators, black builders. Because after judgment comes rebuilding, and rebuilding requires a people who know who they are. And that is the greatest miracle of this moment. Black people are beginning to remember. Remember our strength. Remember our brilliance. Remember our worth. Remember our ancestry. Remember our divine protection. Remember that we were never meant to die in the systems built against us. And as you step into this new chapter, understand this clearly. You are stepping into the future your ancestors dreamed about. You are stepping into the freedom they never tasted. You are stepping into the identity they whispered about in songs and prayers. You are stepping into the destiny that oppression tried but failed to erase. This is your moment. This is your shift. This is your awakening. And as the world around you crumbles, you are rising not by force, not by striving, but by design. So stay calm, stay grounded, stay aligned, stay watching, stay building, and above all, stay awake. Because the story is not ending, the story is beginning. And you were born for this chapter.